So blocks are known in the Akashic world as being something that travels with your soul since
Hmm.
the moment of creation. And that block was created usually between two souls, and sometimes maybe three, that have created this block together by circumstances or actions. And then you carry it through your lifetimes. And what's happening in this lifetime is that block has created a pattern that keeps playing out. And so in moments of like, I don't know why this keeps happening to me, but I keep choosing the wrong man. And
Right.
so usually that's a block. Like that's definitely a block. Or I'm not sure why, doesn't matter how hard I work, I am never getting to the success that I know I'm capable of.
Hmm.
That's a block. So those blocks can be belief systems, so limiting beliefs. There'll be a vow that happened, so a vow of marriage, a vow of poverty, a vow of chastity,
Chastity.
chastity,
Okay.
a vow of service. So vows are under the name of like religion.
Okay.
And then we have unjustified negative karma. So that's when the soul decides to hold responsibility for something that another soul created, to alleviate the pain that.
Hello, everyone. You are listening to Separation to Oneness, and I welcome you. I'm Niki Hughes, and we will delve into the profound subjects of life, love, and spirituality. We are going to investigate and reveal how to live from that limitless reservoir of happiness, care, and resilience. And then once there, how we can allow ourselves to move into the space of bliss, the connection to everything. And that's what I call oneness. And so to find out more about my work, please visit my website. I am at elementalbalance.ca. I really hope you enjoy this episode, and if you feel it's valuable, I ask that you would kindly share it with someone who's important to you. Well, hello, and welcome to this month's podcast, all about getting yourself back to your state of oneness, your bliss. So, thank you so much for being here and listening today. And if you're following on Spotify or on a podcast platform, you can subscribe. Or if you're following along on my YouTube channel, just make sure that you like and subscribe so that you don't ever miss an episode or any of the other empowering content that I publish. And of course, if you enjoy my podcast, please share them with someone important to you. So, what if there was a place that stored every single thing about you from the beginning of your existence to the end of your existence, which we know there is no end to your existence? And what if you could access that place for healing, guidance, and enlightenment? So, this place, an ultimate healing place, it would house every single thing, every decision, every interaction, every path of your entire soul's journey and what was to come. Wouldn't that be incredible? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Just think of all the things that you could do to help yourself with this information, the healing, the goals, the direction, the guidance, the energy updates, the karmic clearing, all just to raise you to the highest level you could be right now where you are, moving you towards your bliss. So today's podcast is all about that. It's about the Akasha or the Akashic Records, this giant library, which probably doesn't even begin to define what it is, the storehouse of everything. So I have a very special guest with me today, whom I'm going to introduce to you in just a moment. And we're going to cover some amazing spiritual and energetic things, like understanding the Akashic Records, why they are an important healing tool, and just how this dimension works, and the rules for access, the healing power of working in the records, and how to get connected and to do the healing work, right? So hopefully we're going to go over maybe a tool or two. That'd be great. So I'm so excited to have this beautiful soul join me today for this topic. I'm so happy to introduce my special guest today, Lara Nakonechny. Hopefully I said it right, aka the Mystic Love Queen. And so I want to just tell you a little bit about Lara. She's just lovely. So she's a very accomplished woman who is a successful spirit-led entrepreneur. She spans both the 3D and the 5D worlds beautifully as a salon owner, a holistic hairstylist, an Akashic guide, and a Holy Fire Usui Reiki practitioner. Lara is a mother and an accomplished spirit-led entrepreneur with a deep-rooted passion for helping people connect to their inner beauty, right? She does this as a salon owner and a former hairstylist for over 25 years, as well as through her energy work as an intuitive. She's very gifted intuitively, and an Akashic guide. She has the unique ability to connect to her guests, both emotionally and spiritually. She leads her life and businesses with an open heart and is filled with compassion, empathy, and joy. And it's been my pleasure to work with Lara a few times, another one coming up, and I can absolutely attest to the fact that she is all of those things. And she began her spiritual path by seeking a better and healthier sense of self, and has always, always had a strong desire to heal her own wounds and traumas. And in doing that, she turned her own healing journey into a thriving practice. She guides others down their own path of transformation healing with the wisdom and healing from the Flower of Life Akashic Records. And her work branches from various modalities, which we're going to dive into. And she guides with her intuitive superpower, which is really, really cool. And she lends her vast knowledge and feminine wisdom to her clients in person or virtually. So Lara's feminine healer energy knows no bounds. So welcome, Lara. So great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for asking me to be a part of this.
Yeah, well, when I met you, a month or so ago, it was very intriguing to do some healing work this way. So I'm really excited to bring it out and have people listen and hear how this can work for them. So the work that you were doing with me is in clearing some things in the Akashic Records. And so before we get into sort of your story on how you got here, because that's always really interesting, because everybody's journey is different and interesting. Maybe you could just tell a little bit about what are the Akashic Records and what makes them important, because they're kind of ethereal for a lot of people, right?
Yes, and aside from just the work that I've done, I actually haven't done a lot of research on the Akashic Records. So I will tell you what I see from my perspective of what they are, because I think that they're viewed in many different forms.
Okay.
But I think that the Akashic Records hold the highest light source energy. And so within the records, we find all of our soul's stories and imprints and actions from the beginning of time. And so this is where I access in healing, and it feels very infinite. Like it feels like it is endless. Like I could never even have enough sessions to ever access all of it. And then there's moments where I've been shown through the records that we can see into the future as well. So I think that time and space does not exist in the Akashic Records.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind's eye, I visualize this all to be a giant, glorious library. And so each soul is represented by a book on the shelf, and your soul is next to the souls that are journeying with you in this lifetime and many previous lifetimes. So it's been my experience in the records that we journey with our soul family. And so that's why we have these moments where we come together and we feel like we've known each other before. And so that's where I resonate with that. So I believe that not only are we accessing our own personal story, but it's the story of every living creature that has ever existed. So it's endless, and I believe it's the infinite wisdom. And so I think that's why it's so highly regarded, is because it is the source of many many books that have been written, many songs that have been written. I think that when we open up to this, the highest degree of light energy, we channel. And I channel the stories, and I believe that creativity, it also is a great representation of the creativity that exists infinitely for all of us to access. So that's my version of what the Akashic Records are.
Okay, so it contains the past, the present, and the future. So, and it's the probability or possibilities of the future, because you have to make those decisions to make those paths actually happen, right? But there's you can go in and look at the probabilities or possibilities that are there for you, which is really cool. Now, you mentioned all of the creatures. So if I wanted to find out about my dogs,
Yes.
I could find out about my dogs. Well, that's really fun. I did
Yes.
not know that. So I'm going to learn a lot about the Akashic Records here today, because I haven't done a lot of work in this space either, but it's come up in my life 2 or 3 times, and then I was led to you. So it's like, okay, I guess spirit is moving me into this area to meet you and to do some work in here. So it's kind of fun the way that works. So a question then about you. So what inspired your work in the Akashic Records? I know you probably started out with the Reiki, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
And so how can you talk a little bit about what led you here? Because I find everybody's journey so incredibly interesting, because I know that you can start with the same course, the same certification as someone else, but their journey is going to go this way and yours is going to go this way based on what's interesting for you. So can you talk a little bit about what inspired you to work in the Akashic Records and what brought you to this level of spirituality and being in service to others in this really kind of unique way?
Yes, I had lived abroad for a few years, and when my family moved back to Saskatoon, where I'm from, I was having a lot of chronic pain.
Mhm.
And being a hairdresser, this is common. Like we have, I was getting headaches and it was postural. And I was just in the process of opening a salon. And I thought, I can't live like this. And I thought it was a very physical thing. And one of my friends had taken a body talk course. And so I started to receive treatments from her, yeah, with body talk. And I didn't realize the capacity of the mind and the heart and all of, like, I knew about consciousness and I'd always been very spiritual myself. But I was really opened up to this new world of the infinite possibility of healing within this realm. And I received sessions from her for 9 years, every 4 weeks, and my life
Wow.
changed. And I got to this point where I couldn't go. She knew that we couldn't go any further together. I was needing something bigger. And that's when I was introduced into, I had another friend, a friend from when I was younger, that I had heard she was reading Akashic Records, and I knew nothing about it.
Right.
And she ended up being my business mentor. So I did a lot of business development within the records. So she was guiding me through what she could see for my future self based on the new version of me that was starting to develop. And so it was a wonderful guidance. And so I thought, you know what, this is a great way to run a business. And it shifted this very masculine world that I was living in,
Mm-hmm.
very much like an old paradigm of how salons were, with a lot of like um, grinding and working too hard and letting your body suffer just to make a paycheck. And it shifted me into this new feminine paradigm that I think I was seeing elsewhere as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it inspired me to lead my salon in that way. And because of the transformation that I was receiving in my personal life from the sessions in the Akashic Records, I got to a point like where I kind of journeyed far enough with her where she was like, there's really no more blocks for me to really work with. I think that you would be a great candidate to start, um, sorry, like I started to melt it into my business. I started to
Mm.
realize that I was actually using it behind the chair already. And she thought, okay, we'll take the course and then you'll be able to do it. And then it really opened up my world as to the possibilities of how I could transition a hairstyling career into something that was still in my mind a part of the beauty industry. It was just the inner beauty.
Right.
So that's where the inner beauty part of
Mm-hmm.
my business came in, where I started to see that most of my like-minded stylists and like-minded clients that I had attracted over the years, and like-minded salon clients, all of our clients, we were all really seekers, looking for this place where we could um, remove the toxicity between women and share in ways that um, the feminine really desires to be seen in. And so it transformed my business. So I think it was just kind of like the snowball of like really seeing the proof of how well it was working for me personally, and then how it was transforming the business and turning it into this vision that I didn't even know could exist, where we could really help people. Like we know as hairstylists that we're very intuitive because of the training of how you have to be intuitive to see what someone likes and wants based on a very brief consultation. But it was something different. It felt like it was like next level therapy, where people were like, I just like, it was valuable information, and I believe I was channeling from the Akashic Records just
Mm,
from taking the courses and stuff.
right. And you were doing
Yeah.
that, as you mentioned, behind the chair, as you're just talking
Mhm.
to people, things are coming in
Yeah.
for you. And oh, isn't that cool?
Yeah,
And
and
you had
it
a
was
long
just,
lineup of people waiting to work with you.
yeah, and I think it's the feeling you get, as I'm sure
Mm,
you've experienced. You just know something's different when you've worked in the Akashic Records.
yeah.
The healing feels different. And so I started to have clients say, like, every time I leave here, I just feel so much better.
Mhm.
And sometimes when you leave like traditional talk therapy, you don't. You kind of
Right.
have to process it for
Yeah.
quite a while before
Yes.
you have a better understanding of how you're healing. So yeah, I think I was getting some really great feedback. And then I actually took a Reiki course because I was trying
Okay.
to, I believe I've been doing Reiki since I was a child. I
Hmm.
think that I had the power of touch is what I called it. So I believe I kind of had been gifted that in my lineage from my dad's side.
Right.
I have a couple of aunts that are quite spiritual and have always felt that they had the healing touch in their hands. And so then I thought, you know what, I need to somehow bridge the gap into the mainstream. And I think because a lot of people recognize the healing of Reiki and have heard
Mm.
it,
Yeah.
that it was a great way to kind of mix the two modalities. So you felt that you were getting the work on your nervous system and the
Mhm.
stress while you're receiving. So that's kind of the perk of being able to do it in the salon. You're receiving the Akashic readings and the Reiki, where you're really feeling light and flowy when you leave.
Yeah. I would imagine that would be incredibly popular.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so did the other stylists that work for you, did they also do that kind of thing, or was it just you? I'm just curious if this is the business model for the salon, just to sort of that next level service for people, or if it was just you that was doing it because of where you were after all of those years. 9 years every 4 weeks is a lot of work. It's doing a
Yes.
lot of work on yourself, right? So what was it, everybody in the salon, all the stylists, or just you?
Well, when I moved locations, I lost my entire staff, and I had to trust through my guide that,
Mhm.
like it was scary for sure because I had just invested all this money in a new space,
Yeah.
and I just slowly they all trickled away, and she showed me that they would all come. Like it was like if you build it, they will come. It was kind of one of those moments,
Hmm.
and I really like I kind of had to get to the edge of like all the emotional stuff of the grief of all of kind of feeling like everything was crumbling. And then I found some stability and some peace and in trust. And they all came. And it was former coworkers that I had already built relationships with in a
Mm.
previous salon. And we kind of had a very similar spiritual base at that salon. Like I think a lot of us had gone through a lot of similar
Hmm.
things. We were born in like the same time period, and so I started to really attract them, and they all just kept coming. And I actually had been receiving a lot of these treatments, but one of my other stylists, she showed me what Reiki really was, and
Okay.
we do a lot of scalp massages, and it
Hmm.
just turns on for her, and she's known for giving the best scalp massages. And so I currently have three other stylists besides myself that do
Hmm.
Reiki. But I do believe, and we've created a few services, like we do a scalp spa. It's like a model of the Japanese head spa, where it's a spa like treatment in a treatment room. And so there's it allows the stylists to use these gifts without having to just be calling it Reiki.
Right.
Like it's just the
Yeah.
power of touch and different kind of environment where I think people really feel it when they come in. It's a very bright and happy and loving place. Like we treat all of our guests as if they're our best friends. Like
Right.
Yeah, and I think that it's just a new paradigm. I see it in other salons as well. Like we're not the only ones. But
Mm-hmm.
when you're as lucky as I am to have attracted a team that has the same philosophies around healing and spirituality and personal growth,
Mm-hmm.
then it's really just it kind of creates a special magic. So I
Yeah.
do feel very blessed that I've attracted
It's like
stylists.
an elevated energetic space, the container that
Mhm.
you've created. Yeah. And I think people are really needing that right now. There's so much, we were chatting about this before we started. There's so much um, uh, stress, and people are so wound up that to be able to go and do the thing that you would normally do to make yourself feel better and have that added bonus of getting your nervous system worked on without having to do anything different, or to get a piece of
Mhm.
advice or guidance that, it helps your heart. That's a beautiful thing. Yeah, I'm sure
Yeah,
there'd be.
it is really powerful.
Yeah, you talked about moving out of the masculine and into the feminine paradigm. Could you just explain that a little bit for folks who
Hmm.
might not know what that feminine paradigm is?
Yeah. And so uh the feminine leads from a different place that the masculine leads. And I
Mhm.
believe that the masculine, that most of society has been operating in the masculine because of the paradigm that was created, I would say maybe in like the 20s and 30s, where we were shown that you can only achieve things through really hard work. And so there's this idea that abundance can only happen if you work really, really hard for it. And now we see a very different energy emerging through coaching and other different modalities, where we're shown that you can be very abundant in mindset, and that will change your abundance.
Right.
And so it's more leading through the place of like staying open intuitively
Mhm.
and understanding and trusting that all the good things are always coming, instead of
Mhm.
sitting in. It's more of like a toxic masculinity where we're scared that it's all going to be taken away from us
Right.
somehow, and
Mhm.
that we have to work really hard to make sure that it doesn't. And there's an association in the old masculine paradigm that wealth is bad somehow, that it's connected
Mhm.
to evil or greed. And so the feminine is showing that there's this transfer of energy where that evil and greed, they don't get to hold all of the money. That there's
Mhm.
a lot of femininity and intuitive wisdom, that now we're all receiving a lot more wealth
Right.
and abundance on the feminine side, instead of. And it's not a male and female thing.
No.
It's more of a difference in the way the paradigm was created, so that, like,
Mhm.
I believe it was created to somehow take away the power of the feminine. Like, I think we have this infinite wisdom, and it was to kind of keep women small, and to have us be like obey your man, and all of the things that would help us just support the male, instead
Mhm.
of. And then we had this surge of feminism, which I think was very powerful and very, very needed. And that feminism came in so that we could start to gain some power. But we shifted in the wrong way, I believe, where we thought we needed to compete, and that's still the masculine paradigm. And we don't need to compete. We need to definitely be one. This is the oneness. we need
Mhm.
to we need to share our gifts with each other, and not from a competition, which women, we were kind of pitted against each other to
Yeah,
climb
we
the
were.
corporate ladder, or however
Yeah.
it was shown to us, that there weren't enough spots for us. And there is enough spots. We just need to use our feminine gifts and our wisdom in a very different way. And I think that that power is emerging, and we'll see it grow and grow and grow. And I think we'll be leading from a different perspective.
Right. And that's great. I love that. And I think of it as like push versus pull. You know,
Yes.
so just to make it super simple, when I think of that masculine energy, I see it and feel it pushing. It's that I
Mm-hmm.
have to push, I have to achieve, and the feminine is being receptive. It's pulling it to you rather than going out and grabbing and pushing, right? So yeah, it's a different way of being, but it's the world is shifting to that. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so your work in that space is beautiful. Nice to see that it can be brought into the workplace, into the business world. And I love what you've done with sort of marrying the two worlds, like this, the sort of the 3D and the 5D world, just combining them and blending them. And that can be a really hard thing for people to do, to bring your
Mm,
sort of spiritual self into the business place, because it is like a masculine container. It can be not safe. It can feel not safe to do that. So I love that you're a living example that it can be done, and it's a beautiful thing, right?
thank you.
Finding your own
Yes.
voice, speaking your own voice, and all that good stuff.
Mhm.
So I wanted to just ask about what's in the records. Now, you've done a couple of readings for me, and we haven't talked about what is in the records, but what is in the records? I mean, I know that there's blocks because you clear things,
Mm.
pacts, curses, karma. So what is in a record, and how does it come up for you when you access them?
Yes. So I was trained in the flower of life, and
Mhm.
that's it's a version of healing through the records, and I think it's very unique and powerful because it works with the divine feminine. So
Okay.
within that, when I'm in when I'm in the container of the records, I use my intuition, which is where we access this divine feminine wisdom. And so I'm clairsentient. So
Mhm.
I feel when I'm on the right path. And so and then I definitely, I'm not a visual person. I'm not seeing the story, but I'm hearing the story. And if I'm open enough, the story just comes through me. So as I'm saying it, I'm visualizing the story. The story's kind of coming together in that way. So I'm taken back to where like we can set an intention and get there as
Mhm.
well, or we always just kind of see what comes up. And so I'm taken back to a story that happened either in this lifetime
Mhm.
or a previous lifetime. And the story is meant to, like, I don't firmly believe that the story existed exactly like that. I believe that I'm accessing your guides and the ancestors and all of the like our spirit teams to gain this knowledge to share with you what the block is. So sometimes it doesn't have a lot of clarity to it, but the goal is really just to get where did this block originate from. So blocks are known in the Akashic world as being something that travels with your soul since
Mhm.
the moment of creation, and that block was created usually between two souls, and sometimes maybe three, that have created this block together by circumstances or actions, and then you carry it through your lifetimes. And what's happening in this lifetime is that block has created a pattern that keeps playing out. And so in
Mhm.
moments of like, I don't know why this keeps happening to me, but I keep choosing the wrong man. And so
Right.
usually that's a block. Like that's definitely a block. Or I'm not sure why, doesn't matter how hard I work, I am never getting to the success that I know I'm capable of. That's
Mhm.
a block. So those blocks can be belief systems, so limiting beliefs. There'll be a vow that happened, so a vow of marriage, a vow of poverty, a vow of chastity,
Chastity?
chastity,
Okay.
a vow of service. So vows are under the name of like religion.
Okay.
And then we have unjustified negative karma. So that's when the soul decides to hold responsibility for something that another soul created, to alleviate the pain that the soul that created it is holding. So it's like kind of a codependency. Unjustified
Right.
negative karma comes from codependency. And then we
But
have,
we might do that for children too, right?
yes,
So it's kind of like
absolutely.
we want to take our kids' pain away, but we're doing it
Yeah.
at a soul level, right?
Yeah. But then we don't realize that our soul is actually holding on to that
Yeah.
block. And
Right.
then nobody's free from it.
Mm-hmm.
Neither parties are free from it. And then we have a curse, which is not your typical, it's not how
It's
we've been
kind of a
believed.
scary word for everybody, the curse.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
But it's
cursed.
actually, a curse is also taking, like, it's a moment of intense anger,
Mm.
usually like an altercation between two souls that deeply love each other. And it's part of codependency as well, to believe that somehow I deserved that. And so then you create the curse. So nobody's cursing you. You're actually taking on this block in the form of a curse,
Okay.
because you believe that if I just acted like this, they wouldn't have, that altercation wouldn't have happened. So then you're holding on to that, and that plays out in so many things. I think that
Doesn't it?
we see that in like, and so curses can be very powerful.
Mhm.
And it's mimicked in like in just in rape culture and how we believe that somehow we did something wrong. So I think it's carried. So all of these blocks can be held collectively. So
Mhm.
your soul may not have actually experienced that, but it could just be a very deep rooted collective wound
Mhm.
that was happening at that time. So it could be something from like the 50s, where women weren't allowed to join the workforce in the way that they do now, and so
Right.
then that can create collective wounds. So there's many variations of those blocks that show up
Mhm.
in wounds, and then I feel like I'm missing
So
one.
another one that comes up for me when you talk about the collective is in the 50s is women weren't allowed to have their own bank accounts.
Yes.
Isn't that crazy?
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that may end up being a money block, feeling like you're
Yeah,
not worthy
abundance,
of
that I
abundance.
didn't deserve it. Somehow
Yeah,
collectively,
I'm not
the
allowed.
patriarch decided that I wasn't worthy enough to have my own
Right.
anything, really. And then we have pacts. And so pacts are usually a two-sided soul agreement for personal gain. So you'll see that between a mother and a child, where she's decided to allow the mom to act in this way to receive the nourishment or the nurturing that comes when the act isn't being done. So it's like it's fear-based, I think, pacts, that we're
Right.
going to lose something if we don't operate in this pact form between two souls.
Mhm.
And I think that when you take all of those pacts and then they come down to one simple thing, and it really brings us to the inability to have oneness.
Right.
So we're creating these soul level agreements with people that have developed all of our belief systems. And so over a period of time of sessions in the Akashic world, you're just dropping all of these blocks, and it's just changing how you see the world. And for
Mhm.
me, like how I explained it, when I first started getting, like, I'd already received all of this healing through body talk, and so physically I was doing good. My chakras were really balanced. I felt like I was on, like, I was powerful like I had never felt before. But I still had this mental fog where I couldn't feel my intuition or see. And it was all of these blocks that were in the way of me really finding who I was.
Mhm.
So it's just like this uncovering of who you are. And sometimes I think the word that I use the most when I'm describing the heaviness is this loneliness, because we've
Mhm.
had all of these blocks to walk through with our soul for all of these years, and we feel a little lost without it. And so there can be these transitional periods where you're feeling like you feel great from a session, but then when you're getting into some of the depths of it, there's this loneliness that comes because we're missing this the energy of the codependency. And it clears, like it goes away. But I think we're all here on this planet for
Yeah.
oneness. Like we're searching
Yeah.
for it. There's so everything leads back to that. All of the modalities, we all come back to this. All of the meditations, all
Mhm.
of the spiritual journeys, even with religion, we're coming into oneness.
Right.
Um,
And that's the love. That's
and
love.
that's the love.
Love, bliss,
Exactly.
self-love, all of that. And I
Yeah.
think from my perspective that that feeling of emptiness inside of ourselves, we're looking for the connection back to ourselves,
Mhm.
right? And all those things stand in the way. So the more that you can do your healing work and clear that stuff out, the more you can step into connecting to the whole you, right?
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
that's where your oneness comes from, right? That's the whole
Yes.
premise of my book. And I was going to ask you, because I like that you said, many modalities do this, because there isn't just one way to access and clear this stuff. I think the Akashic Records is a really cool way to do it. But
Mhm.
I know I do a lot of past life work and hypnotherapy work too. And um, there's a difference in how you access the information, but I think the outcome might be the same. I don't know if it's
Mhm.
shorter, if it's longer, I have no idea. But I know when I did my work with you, you were telling me about the past life connections and all those wonderful things. When I do regression work with somebody or self regress, I'm in it, right? So you get to be actually in the experience. So it's just a really different way of accessing it, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the result can be the same.
Yes, exactly. And I think that I don't know if it's specifically to the way that I was taught and how this was
Hmm.
created and done on me that created the belief system around the story, but I believe I'm not in it. Like I believe I'm watching it
Right.
and feeling it and sensing it.
Yeah.
And most of it's channeling. Like I do
Yes.
think that it's just an open channel. And I think that's what connects us all of the different modalities.
Hmm.
Um, Including art. Like I
Yes.
think it's just an open channel. And however that heals you, I think we're all meant to find what works for us.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah,
Hmm.
I think so too. So why is it important to work in the records? Like what is the benefits of being in the records? Is it faster? Is it comprehensive? Why is clearing at this level important?
I think just from witnessing my own personal transformation, I think it's transformational. I
Hmm.
think that the access of this infinite wisdom, I, I I don't know that you're seeing it in all of the modalities. Like I think hypnotherapy, I felt like someone was accessing that type of wisdom as well.
Hmm.
But it's also the ability to clear within the violet flame. So you're not just accessing and telling a story, you're
Yeah, you're
actually
clearing.
clearing the
Yeah.
block. And it's the clearing of the block with the
Hmm.
violet flames, which is
Hmm.
what we use to clear. Uh, that it transforms because it's gone. Like I the difference is I can't most people after they've had a session, they have a very hard time remembering what the session was about a couple days later or the next
Right.
week. And that's mostly because it's meant to go away. Like it
Mhm.
actually will feel. And if I have Reiki, which I love it for other reasons, I still remember what the channeled messages from my Reiki practitioner were about because I'm meant to actually sit with them and to continue to like do work on a different level with them.
Hmm.
So I believe it's the clearing aspect of it that
Right.
really
Okay.
creates transformation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I would agree
Mhm.
with that too. And so the other thing that working in the Akashic Records can do is it facilitates your spiritual growth, right? And your evolution. So, and that's just from that whole act of clearing stuff out, which then creates space for you to grow and expand in other ways, right? Is that how you would
Yes.
see that?
Yes.
Great. And it's also a way to heal from the past, heal from past traumas. So it can be current life traumas. I do a lot of trauma release work. And I
Mhm.
would imagine this is a way that you could also do trauma work in a current life situation, right? Or does it have to be soul based going back, or can you just do work specifically in the current life?
Yeah, you absolutely can do work in the current life, but most of the time, once you get into the story of this current life, what I've noticed is
Mhm.
we're actually accessing a block that was created in a past life. So you
Okay.
came here to experience this trauma in this
Right.
lifetime, which a lot of people don't like. It's a hard thing to say to someone that they
I
because
know.
you never asked or chose to experience that trauma, but you were meant to heal it on a very deep
Right.
soul level. And
Yeah.
so it wasn't that you chose it, you chose to heal it so that it would never
Yes.
happen again. And
Right.
so that's where I think I notice it for past lives, but there have been some very, very deep imprints that didn't have anything to do with the past life that happened in childhood wounds. So the Akashic records, like I find that very powerful as a lot of the trauma in our childhood
Hmm.
will pop up and it resonates so deeply for people because they can remember it, right?
Right.
So I
And it
think it's very
colors
powerful
everything.
to, yes, yeah.
Hmm.
And I think especially with our patterns of belief systems around money and about relationships,
Hmm.
those ones I tend to come from the wounds of the inner child.
Yeah. And I find too that the other piece that comes from the inner child wounds, and I was working on some of those today, was the identity level, sort of who
Mm,
am I? Because we
yeah.
take in those messages as children. that are handed to us by others, knowingly or unknowingly. And that's how we create the sense of who we are. And that can be a positive or that can be a negative, right? And if it's a negative, then you're kind of set up for this pattern of repeating issues in your life. So being able to clear that out at the identity level is a huge healing tool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you
And
are,
those inner child wounds, just to touch on that a
yeah,
little
yeah.
bit, I think that they follow the lineage. So their beliefs
Mm,
is beliefs that are imprinted on us as children because our parents, like our mother said that to us or reacted in that way because her mother did. And so the powerful work in the one of the reasons why I find it so transformational is when we spend this time clearing our wounds, we're clearing it from the beginning of time and creation.
nice.
So
Yeah.
that means throughout that entire lineage, it's
Yeah.
very powerful that each of those souls receive that healing as well. So they're
Hmm.
not going to come into their next lifetime repeating that pattern. And then it clears for the future generations as well. So I'm not choosing that pattern for my daughter and then her kids. So
Exactly.
that's the powerful part of the inner child work, I think.
It's funny because I talk to my clients about how energy never dies. So you have the choice. You can clear it
Yeah,
here or you can pack it like a bag and take it with you.
yeah,
But you're
yeah,
going to have to
exactly.
clear it somewhere. So why not do it here? And my advice is always clear as much as you can right now in your life so that the next time you come back, you are having a much lighter, wonderful
Mhm.
experience. And you're improving your life here at the same time, too. So I think that's an important point, right?
Right,
Now,
exactly.
you are a really intuitive person. Have you always been a really intuitive person? And do you need to be a really intuitive person to be able to work in the Akashic Records or access them yourself? Because not everybody is.
I think that innately at soul level, we all are. We're all the same. It's the
Okay.
oneness that we're here for.
Mhm.
But I do believe there's motivation behind it. So I just ended up on a career path that allowed me to be very intuitive. So I developed um, those natural gifts
Mhm.
more and more as the years went on, being a hairstylist. But I do remember being very young. I used to think that I could hear what people were thinking.
Ah, okay. And that's
And
that
I
clear
would
audience that you've
yeah,
got. You've got that clear audience piece.
yeah. And I also I never told anyone this for so many years, but I always used to think that I could speak with dead people. And I was
Okay.
fascinated with angels and ghosts.
Hmm.
And I could feel them. Like I didn't just think they were in my room or in my bedroom. My like all the hair would stand up that someone would walk in and I would almost feel wind or something. But
Right.
I couldn't see. So then I didn't believe because I think we're taught that if you don't see it, it's not there.
Not real. That's right.
Not
Yeah.
real, not real. And then I had a moment. This was very impactful. I believe I was around 13 or 14 years old, and I have a twin sister,
Okay.
and we were getting ready in the bathroom together. And I had this like glitchy moment where I burnt myself with the curling iron because I was actually looking at her while I
Hmm.
was curling my hair and I wasn't moving in the way that I thought. And I had
Okay.
this weird like mirror thing that happened and it
Hmm.
made my heart race. And I was like, that had never happened, but I thought I was her for like a brief, maybe
Wow.
5 seconds. And in that moment, the phone rang. I could hear like the landline and it was loud and I could hear it
Hmm.
ringing. And I could hear the conversation on the phone. And it was a conversation between my aunt and my father, so brother and sister. And she was very, very upset. And I was so far away from this phone, there was no way I could hear it. And I could hear her crying and screaming that brother Joe, my uncle, was missing, but I
Okay.
could hear both sides. And so my dad quickly got up and got in the vehicle and left. And he went to go help find. We knew that my uncle had been ice fishing.
Hmm.
And so he went to go pick up my aunt, and then they were going to figure out what to do together. But I heard the conversation, and my mom didn't know what was going on. She was all upset. She had been upstairs, and I think my dad just raced out of there. And I told her what happened. I said, Auntie Liz called, and this is the conversation that happened. And then my sister, my twin, standing in the bathroom with me, and she looked at me and she was like, "How do you know all that?" Like she couldn't hear it. it. She didn't hear any of it. And then I just kind of sat with it, and I never told my mom that I didn't actually hear the conversation, but it was exactly what had happened.
Right.
And but I do believe I'm psychically connected to that aunt. Like she's
Right.
the one that has kind of brought the gift into my world.
Mhm.
And and I think I just never really used it. I knew it existed, and I believe that I knew that I was different. I always thought people looked in my eyes like I was looking too deeply into them or
Mhm.
something. I had been told that like, oh, you like I creeped them out or something the way I was looking, and I
Yeah.
was like,
You
I
see.
and I so I think I was just always like listening. I was
Right.
always kind of listening to what they were thinking. Anyway, as my teenage years went on, I found alcohol and drugs, and it numbed it, it dimmed it, and it
Mm-hmm.
completely made it all go away.
Right.
And then I had a spiritual awakening that really brought it up. And I had a moment where I knew that I had this expansiveness that
Right.
happened within my heart where it changed how I viewed the entire world. Flowers
Mm.
looked brighter and more
Right.
beautiful. Music sounded differently. And so I had a pivotal moment where it all just came back, and that was in 2012. And I have heard that a lot of people had these moments in
Yes.
2012, that there was a great awakening that had kind of begun.
You had mine then too.
Did you in 2012? Yeah.
2012. Yeah. 2012.
And
Yep. I
and it
changed my
was
whole life in 2012.
exactly.
Yeah.
I
Boom.
came back, and I like the world just I made some big changes, and my life
Hmm.
my life definitely grew in ways. And it also went into depths of despair and grief. Like I had the ability to go into this very deep rooted grief,
Hmm.
and experience a lot of clearing and healing work from that place, where I believe that was my take on shadow work, of like
Right.
really uncovering the oneness from a place of, I don't know that everyone goes into grief that way, but I needed to really feel grief because I
Hmm.
had numbed myself for so many
Yeah.
years that it all just came flooding in,
Yeah.
and it had to be felt. And had I not numbed myself for so many years, I'm sure it wouldn't have been as hard to handle.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
are you an identical twin?
We're a third type of twin. And
Three, a third
so
type.
it's a fraternal, we're not fraternal or identical. So
Oh.
there's a third type, and there's very, very few of us that are like that, but we're very intuitively connected. We
Mm-hmm.
say a lot of the same things, but we don't always look alike. We go from looking alike to not really looking alike.
Interesting. I
Yeah.
haven't heard
But
of
we
that.
don't, we have a very close relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we don't speak all the time. Like we connect and we chat on the phone and stuff, and we're always there for each other. But there's a deeper closeness where I already know what's going on in her life. She doesn't have to
Yeah.
tell me. Like
It's
I
that
can tell
whole
what's
twinning thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's really cool.
Exactly.
Kind of fun
Yeah.
that you chose that for this life to do the twinning thing.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I wish every twin could find the gratitude in this special bond, and have that with their twin, because I have met a lot of twins that aren't close, and I could
Yeah.
never
I find that
imagine.
sad. It's an opportunity
Yes.
missed, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
So with the
exactly.
records, I'm just curious because I know that there are special guides, special record keepers, I don't know what you call them, what you refer to them as, that oversee the records and the access to the info. Because I don't think that, like, for example, me, who hasn't done any work in the records, could just go up and access whatever I want, right? So how does that all work? Because you could really damage yourself if you went up and got stuff you weren't supposed to know, or that would be really difficult for where you are in your life. We've
Mhm.
all done things in our past that helped us get us where we are here, but they might not be very pleasant to hear about, right? So
Yeah.
how does that work in the records? How does the information get presented and discerned for where you are?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah,
I believe that that's why it's so important to take the training. Like for me, it
right.
was it was about 3 years of training.
Yeah,
And
that's a
what the
lot.
training actually is working through your shadow work. So all of the shadow work that I was doing, I was actually learning, I was becoming an educator in the Akashic Records.
Right. Okay.
So it's like deeper layers of levels of healing, individually. that allows you, and then God, I can never remember this word, where that you're gifted the ability to have access to it.
Okay.
And so you have to kind of make it through all of this training, and it's like it's journaling, and it's developing your intuition, and it's the ability to see the world from this perspective that just
Mhm.
happens through all of the training. And so there's a lot of work involved in it, and I do believe that there has to be that pathway so that it feels safe. So
Right.
then I've built up all of the knowing around it, and behind that I also have the support of the other, in this case they were all women that took the course with me, and journeyed in a lot of group work. So I have the support of this collective energy that's also holding a container of safety, where if ever I felt unsure about something, I have the support system. And I think that that's the important part in accessing the records is you're building some like 3D infinite wisdom,
Right.
where you have to, from a human standpoint, be able to hold that space for other people. And then the records really, like, it just feels like they opened up one day for me. Like at first when I started doing sessions, I didn't trust anything, and it's
Mhm.
that oneness, as soon as
Yeah.
I started to trust myself, they opened for me. So they had to kind of happen together in that way. And I think that there's other ways that people go into access. And I don't actually believe that they're accessing what they think they're accessing. I believe they're
Okay.
accessing some darker energies,
Mm.
because in the records, from my experience, it's only the highest degree of light energy. So there isn't anything that can come through with the proper preparation in
Mhm.
the service. So for instance, when we do that meditation that we start you out in,
Right.
that's
Mhm.
pivotal. Like without that meditation, my ego could be coming in, or some dark energies could be coming in and disrupting what the story is.
Right.
So we're creating with prayer this safety bubble, basically, where we're held in the source energy as well, to
Right.
access. So I think that's the pivotal part of it, is that you're
Mhm.
creating that safety net for yourself through prayer, where you're very intentional about what you're asking for, and that only the lightest source of energy is going to come through, and that no negative entities can come through. That's an important part of the service, so that
Right. But there are record keepers, masters of the records, or whatever they're called, that you
yeah,
work
the
with
Akashic
that
Masters.
serve up whatever is necessary to be
Hmm.
shown, told in that moment to whoever your client is. That's right?
Exactly. And so they are the gatekeepers, is how I explain it. So they only let me see what they think that this soul that I'm treating will
Right.
allow, is ready for.
Okay.
So they could come in with the intention that they want this block cleared around something to do with their husband, but there may be some other smaller blocks that really need to go first. So the Akashic Masters are the ones that are the
Mhm.
gatekeepers of what the session is going to be. So it's out of my control what will get channeled through. But I think that they're the protectors of it. Like, I don't think that anyone gets through and accesses things that are not meant for them. I think
Yeah, I
it's
don't think you can.
I don't think you can.
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't
they're
think you
gatekeepers, and
can.
I think that there's a dimension right below it,
Mhm.
that there's some dark energy that can be accessed through there,
Mm.
in more the spirit realm, of like people trying to kind of play jokes on you, or tricks, or there could be
Mm.
darker entities that would exist in there. I'm not
Right.
quite sure. I don't know enough
Yeah.
about the dimensions.
Yeah. And so it's just, if you're coming at it from the highest place, you wouldn't be going to that darker place, right? Like that's the important thing, is that preparation to make sure that you
Absolutely.
are in a state of high enough vibration, right? So
Yeah.
is there
Yeah.
anything or any tips or anything that you would give people when to get information from the Akashic records without having to go through the training? Is there a way to do anything that would allow information to flow in, or is it really about the training and finding somebody to do the work like you?
I believe to access it to the level of transformation, you would need to, because
Right.
it's kind of like it's
Yeah.
like Reiki, where
Specialist.
I could, yeah, like I could use it a little bit, but it wouldn't be to the fullest expansive
Right.
abilities. But I do believe that we're all accessing it all the time. Like, I think
Mhm.
it is ultimately what our intuition is made up of. And to strengthen that and have more access, anything that you're doing in that theta brainwave in
Right.
meditation. And then if you can meditate, this has been a very powerful tool for me that I think everyone should
Yes.
attempt to connect to. And it's automatic writing. So
Okay.
so you're journaling, but you're journaling openly. So you would start out with the intention of asking your guides to open your heart and your spirit to receive the messages that are meant for you. And in that aspect, you're opening your channel to the Akashic Records, and then you're downloading the information from the Akashic Records onto paper. And
Okay.
so most of the time, there'll be messages that'll come through there that your ego won't come up with. So you know that that automatic writing, it's kind of just a very
Yeah.
open
Okay. And
feeling.
it's important when
Channel.
you're automatic writing to not think, right? So
Exactly.
there's a bit of a skill to automatic
There
writing.
is. Yeah. And to write, handwrite for sure. I like it doesn't work for me
Yeah.
when I'm
Use your
typing.
pen,
Maybe it
use
does
your
for other
paper.
people. Piece of paper. And most of the time you'll look down at it and you'll be like, wow, that's really messy, or that's not my handwriting. Like it'll have a different essence to it. And but it has been very powerful for me in receiving messages when I was first working with the Akashic Records.
It's
Sorry, I'm just
funny,
gonna
Lara, because I was doing automatic writing for a long while, working on channeling and stuff. And I think, oh, this is just sort of fluffy stuff. I don't know what this is. And so then
yeah.
one day, a few years later, I find that journal and open it and I went, wow, I had no idea it was this level of information. Because in the moment I didn't recognize what it was, but a little while later it was like, that wasn't a really important message for me. I could see
Mhm.
it very differently later. So I think that the
Yeah.
messages that we bring in when we write them down and when we bring them in, they're really multidimensional messages. And same with
Mhm.
channeling. Like you can have a channeling, you can channel information, and in the moment it might not feel like much, but the next time you listen to it, there's so many layers to the information energetically that you're going to
Yeah.
hear something completely different the next time you look at it or hear it, right? So
Yeah.
keep at it with that automatic writing. So
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
yeah, so it's just is that something that you do every day, or is that something that you did in the beginning, or when?
It was something that I did every day, like in the teachings of the Akashic, we do like there was a 21-day period.
Mhm.
And so I would highly recommend anyone do this for 21 days, and you will
Okay.
see life transformations of 21 days just based on the intention of changing this pattern of not to doing it.
Mhm.
And so I have gone every year I'll do 21 days, usually in the spring when I'm
Mhm.
trying to kind of reset and refocus. And
Right.
like my new year is the astrological year. So usually Aries season, I really step into this newness of manifesting and creating and starting all over again. And but I do have a daily practice that I do consistently, and
Mhm.
that's what kind of keeps my mental health in check, and it keeps my intuition sharp. And it's really just my me time when we can, like, we're still in the 3D. we're
Yeah.
we're very
There we
busy people, as like I
yeah.
have a young daughter and I have a very busy 16-year-old. And so it's my me time and it's my self-care where I just sometimes I pull some cards, sometimes I just sit and read, and sometimes I just sit in silence and I open up the Akashic Records and I just allow myself to be flooded with wisdom. So, but it's definitely happening every day for half an hour. And so if I've got more time on the weekend, I'll stretch it to an hour, and sometimes it'll turn into 3 hours.
Yeah.
Like if
That's
there's
kind of
nothing
fun.
happening in my house, I'm like, we're just going to keep
Woo.
going with this.
Keep going, yeah. Be in the
Yeah.
flow. Yeah, that's
Hmm.
great. I think it's really important that people do that, those self-care
Yeah.
exercises, tools, just carving out that little bit of time, even if you can't do 30 minutes, do 10. And if you
10,
can't find
5.
10 minutes, then go
Yeah.
get some help from somebody because you're really in a bad state if you can't find 10 minutes for yourself, right?
Yeah,
Really
exactly. And
important.
then I feel like even nature, like if you can utilize, like take the earbuds out, the podcast, the music, whatever you're doing when
Yep.
you're on your walk in nature, and use that for that me time, that moment of channeling, and just open up to, with an intention and a prayer maybe, of what's to come. I'm just open to hear what the messages are today, and then go on your walk, and you'll be surprised how nature will bring you little messages.
Nature is a
And
great messenger, isn't it? It's
I
a great
know,
teacher.
yeah. And
Yeah.
water, bath time for me. If I'm
Okay.
really struggling, I know that the vibration of water will shift me. So that's a huge part of my daily practice as well. I have a bath
Okay.
either like in the afternoon or in the evening, and it just
Right.
kind of resets my nervous system and
Yeah.
gets me back into my
Yeah.
state
I've
of
heard that
flow.
about a lot of people who do a lot of channeling, that water is really important for getting
Mm,
grounded, because
yes.
you can be up here a lot and then it brings you back down into your
Yeah,
body and just resets everything. So that's really good practice.
yeah.
And so when you're doing this 21-day period of automatic writing, if we're going to be encouraging people to do it, and maybe I'll try it,
Yes.
um, what are you asking? Is there a general thing that you're asking and then just letting it come? Is it a different question every day? Like, what would that look like?
I usually start out for my first 7 days of just keeping it general. And what I've noticed usually floods in is just like my very superficial stress comes in.
Okay.
So I'm kind of dealing with it in layers. So that superficial stress will be the first stuff that comes in. And then I get into the deeper rooted things of like issues in relationships. And so then for the next 7 days, I'll set an intention at the top of the page where um, today I'm open to receiving messages about and or wisdom around my relationship with my children.
Right.
And then so then I have an intention for that automatic writing, and then it's kind of the focus for it. And then when it's done, where I feel like that first week it can go on and on and on. I feel like I have so much to say. And then I work into it's more of like a manifesting automatic writing where it allows me to dream new things. So I'm opening up the channel of visioning things. So
Ah,
what can I open up to that I'm not already seeing in my physical world? And so then it feels like a downloads of like, oh, have you ever thought of this? Or this is a possibility. And so then I kind of automatic write on that perspective.
mm-hmm.
And then at the end of that, I always at least try to do one day of just I am. So it's like after I've done, sometimes I'll do two, where I've done all of this work on myself. I've had all of this new insight of where I'm going to go and what my life's going to look like. But then I ground into who am I?
Right.
And so then that's kind of the final stage. And sometimes I'll do 2 days on that, and I'll spend a lot of time on those last 2 days. I'll save it for when I have a little bit more time. And it's just to end that 21 days with some clarity of
Right.
like, so this is the new version of me.
Right. So
And
who
that's like the
love that?
stepping into her where I've been kind of dreaming of her, and I've been shedding and then dreaming and building, and now I'm stepping into who she is.
Yeah, it's interesting because the dreaming keeps coming up too for me. I just did a money energy workshop, and dreaming is the most important part of manifesting.
Yes.
And that's the one thing that we cut off as adults because we're so busy doing, 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 and running from this to that and this stress to that stress. We don't ever have any time to just sit and dream about, what do I want?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have a lot of clients that come in, and when I ask them, what do I want? They look at me like a deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just know what I don't want. Okay, well, let's start with that and then we'll flip
Yeah.
it over, right? So
Yes.
get into the habit of identifying what you want and just allowing that dream to happen, and not stopping yourself by saying, oh, that's too big, or that's
Mm-hmm.
never going to happen. Stop shutting it off. Just let it flow the way it wants to flow, because you just never
Yeah.
know. You never know, right?
You never know. Yeah. One of my favorite things to say when I'm visioning, I always say this or something better. So I'm not creating an attachment to it or control around what it looks like.
Yeah.
So when I'm manifesting my dream partner that's coming into my life, I just,
Mhm.
I can visually see what he looks like. Maybe he looks like this, and his value systems are this. So I have my baseline of like, this is absolutely like what I want. And then I open it up to the universe, and then it's this or something better. So then I know that it's infinite. Like I can dream, but at least I can get to something tangible first, because that's part of the manifesting part, right?
And something you said to me in one of my Akashic Records sessions that's just lodged right in there. I went, oh, I like that. You said it's not about deserving anything, it's about desiring. If you
Yes.
desire it, it has to come. It's like,
Hmm.
wow, that's cool. I love that.
Yeah. And
So yeah,
that's
that
back
really
to that.
stuck with me.
I love that. Thank you. Yes,
Yeah,
that's that masculine and feminine again. So
right.
the old masculine patriarch told us that we only get things if we deserve them.
Exactly.
And we get things because we desire them. Like
That's
what
right.
it just it's such a juicy energy to think
It
of, like this is
is.
coming because I just desire it. And that's
Yeah,
how
I want it.
powerful.
I can have whatever I want. And that's the
Yes.
belief we need to get to. I can have whatever I want because I can,
Yeah,
right? You're
exactly.
desiring it. So I love that. That really lined up for me. So thank you for that.
Yes.
So
Thank
what is
you.
your inspirational message for the world? What would you like people to take away from our conversation today, or it just in general about life? What is your inspirational message for the world? What do you stand for? Your mission?
Yeah, I that's a great question. I often I often think about this because I think it's shifting. Like for me, the just from my family, I believe in service. Like I believe that if we're all here to serve.
Yeah,
And
I do.
so I love giving, I love sharing my gifts, and I love giving people experiences. And so I come from a place of service, but I do feel that it's shifting. It's like
Mhm.
there's an element to it that is more about healing and service.
Mhm.
So I believe that's where this inner work has to come in. So it's just as important to give others, to others in service as it is to gift yourself the healing
Still,
that you desire.
still giving. You're just giving to
Yes.
yourself, and we have not been allowed to do that. That's been trained out of us, and we've been told it's
Mhm.
selfish or whatever that
Mhm.
messaging is. We've not been taught how to be okay with loving ourselves and focusing on ourselves.
Exactly.
Right. So
Yeah.
I love that message. That's a great message.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And
And
I want to add one more thing to
yeah.
it that was kind of coming through. That, oh yes, like it may seem cliche, but I have such proof of this in the Akashic Records, that when we heal ourselves, we heal the world.
Yes.
So it just changes your mindset of all the politics that are happening in the world.
Mhm.
And yes, like we're very aware of war and all of the damaging things that are happening in our
Mhm.
economy. But we also have to come back to understanding that it's our duty as individuals in this consciousness that we're here to heal ourselves,
Right.
and that if everyone decides to heal themselves, none of these things would be existing. So it's the one thing that you
Exactly.
can do in life in service is work on yourself.
Yeah, I love that. And the other
Mhm.
thing that people need to recognize too is that in this consciousness, in order to receive, you have to give. It's that
Mhm.
it's the reciprocal, the law of reciprocity, right?
Yes,
So it's important. So the more you give, the more you are in service and give to others, the more comes to you. It has to,
exactly.
right?
Yeah,
So
it
do you want to
does.
give good things? Do you want to give bad things? How do you want,
Mhm.
what do you want to come to you? And changing your mindset's really, really important.
Yeah.
So, are there any inspirational resources that you would recommend for people? Anything that they could look at? We'll give
You
them
know,
access to you in a moment, but is there any inspirational resources for folks?
well, I don't have anything specific to the Akashic Records, but I do have, there was a very big part of my healing journey where I was reading oracle books, and I think she's from Victoria.
Oh,
She might be living in Portland now, but I do know she's Canadian, and her name is Heather Christian Stang. And channels messages from the JOGs, the John of Gods, I believe is what
okay.
their term is. But it was life changing for me. Like there was a perspective and a trust that everything was going to work out from these books. And so there's one called A Life of Magic, and it did by the time. So
Mm,
you just flip through the book, and you wherever it lands, that's your message for the day.
wasn't
So
that nice
that
of
was a part of my daily practice, and so
her?
it was
Mhm.
just a great way to start. So I used that was a huge part of inspiration for me. So I would
Great.
love to share that. And then she
Okay.
had the second one was called Live Like You're on Vacation.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And so it was less about this patriarchal grind that we have to work this hard, just create the life where you don't need a vacation from your life.
Yeah.
And so, and it was kind of the second level of those channeled messages that And she's got a podcast, and she's just a wonderful human. I really look to her
Okay.
for a lot of inspiration.
So I'll put the a link to that in the show notes for
Okay,
folks.
wonderful.
Okay. And is there anything on the Flower of Life training that you took? Could we put something up around that as well?
Yes,
Um,
actually, my website should be live in a month or so. So I'll give you, I have the it's mysticlove.com, I believe. I still have to nail that one down. But what I'll be doing is I'll be doing training in the fall if you want
oh, great.
to learn. So there's a brief training where you're just connecting to your intuition and accessing
Okay,
the
great.
Akashic records. And then there's a more advanced training where you can read other people's Akashic records. So that will be
Awesome.
happening in the fall
Oh, that's great.
virtually.
Okay.
So that'll be happening virtually or
Oh,
in
nice.
person here in Saskatoon. Yeah.
Lovely. And so what
Mhm.
I'll do then is when you get that up and live, then I can add it to the show notes when you're ready. Doesn't
Okay.
matter, it doesn't have to be right away. So
Okay, great.
we'll wait for that. That's awesome.
Okay.
I look forward to that coming up.
Yes.
Great. Is there anything else that you would like to say about who you are, how you got here, the Akashic Records? Is there anything else that you'd like to sort of leave folks with today?
I think I have just a little bit of wisdom around
Mhm.
believing in yourself. I think that we don't teach our children that enough.
Mhm.
But I believe my parents taught me that, and so
Love.
they taught me to believe in myself and that I could create my wildest dreams, and I have been. But I think the most important part is to, like, I always connect to the word magic. Life is
Mhm.
magic, and life is love, and love is a vibration, and love is not something that will ever change. And so it's the ability to love in all the moments of life. And I think that kindness is the representation of that. So love
Mhm.
and kindness those are my two philosophies that I
Right.
live
So
with.
be kind, everybody, not just to
Hmm.
others, but be kind to yourself too.
Yourself.
That's
Yes.
great.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. And so right now, though, before your website's up, thank you for that, Lara.
Mhm.
You can be reached by email at mysticlovequeen@gmail.com. And I'll also put that in the show notes for everybody, which is great. I
Yes.
love that. Or the @ symbol Mystic Love Queen on Instagram. So you've
Yes.
got an Instagram account. So thank you so much. We're just going to close here for today. So just a huge, huge thank you, Lara, for coming on today to help us understand this really important place and everything about the Akashic Records. So we covered 4 amazing things: understanding the Akashic Records, what's in them, why it's an important healing tool, how this dimension works, kind of the rules for access, what you need to get in there, the healing power of the records themselves, and actually some tools on how to help yourself and potentially download some information from the records without having to do 3 years worth of training or 9 years of body talk, right? Which
Yeah.
is amazing what you've done. I'm just so in awe of you.
Thank
That's
you.
great. And I want to thank all of our listeners for listening too. So if you enjoyed the podcast, if you could please share it with someone you care about, and make sure that you subscribe on Spotify or YouTube channel. And just a little bit about how to reach me. If you want to work on your personal journey to self-love and bliss, you can check out my book, Radical Self-Love, Live a Vibrant Life Beyond Fear and Limitation. That's on Amazon and an Audible format. And to find out more about me and what I offer in support of my higher calling to ignite the light in others and the world, you can find me at elementalbalance.ca. So thank you again, and we will see you next month.